Military officers in Gabon, where President Ali Bongo Ondimba has been elected for a third term in office, have announced on state television the cessation of power vexed by fraudulent elections. Another coup in Africa, even as the situation in Niger is still a challenge for African governing powers. Thanks for joining us on Newsroom Live on Dash News. A group of military officers have announced that they have deposed President Ali Bongo Ondimba. The declaration came a few hours after Ali Bongo was proclaimed winner of the July 26 presidential elections by securing 64.27% of the votes compared with 30.77% for his main challenger, Albert Ondo Osa, coalition presidential representative. Gunshots were heard in some streets of the capital, Libreville, before military pronouncements. At the moment, all land and sea borders remain closed, while state institutions have been resolved. For more on this, let's have Peter Susi live joining us here. A beautiful morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, Baseni.
So what is the situation on ground now in Gabon?
Yeah, the situation remains very disturbing and uncertain. And for us to better understand it, it would be important for us to go into the timeline of how the events happened. At 3 a.m. Central African time, that's 2 a.m. GMT, the results of the presidential elections that was highly disputed between Albert Ondo Osa and Ali Bongo came out, and Ali Bongo was proclaimed winner of the presidential elections with a 64.72% win over the opposition coalition challenger. Just few minutes after the proclamation of the results, gunshots were heard on the streets of the capital Libreville, and that sent shockwaves down the spine of the inhabitants of the Gabonese capital. At about 4:35 a.m., it was a very shocking scene. The military took over the state television and announced that they have deposed Ali Bongo Ondimba. That's the situation as it is right now. In the declaration, they say that their move has been masterminded by the July 26 election, which to them they say was not credible, fair, and transparent, and it did not meet the aspirations of the Gabonese population. They have also lashed out against what they describe in their own words as an irresponsible governance of Ali Bongo Ondimba, who was proclaimed winner of the election just 2 hours earlier and is going in for a third term. In this light, they have created the Committee for Transition and Restoration of the Institutions. And by that move, they have announced the following measures. They announced the closure of the country's land and sea borders. They have dissolved all state institutions, that is the government, the National Assembly, the Senate, the Constitutional Council, as well as the Economic and Social Council. Also, in their declaration, they have called on nationals living in Gabon to remain calm as they take special measures to ensure that the country move on from the president, Ali Bongo Ondimba. So actually, that is what happened between 3 a.m. and about 5:30 a.m. this morning. For more details, we are going to get the declaration of the military leaders, of the military leaders who have staged what could be described as a military takeover in Gabon. It's in French, but it summarizes everything that has been made so far.
Social. Aussi, force est d'admettre que l'organisation des échéances électorales, dites élections générales, du 26 août 2023, n'a pas rempli les conditions d'un scrutin transparent, crédible et inclusif, tant espéré par les Gabonaises et les Gabonais. À cela s'ajoute une gouvernance irresponsable, imprévisible, qui se traduit par une dégradation continue de la cohésion sociale, risquant de conduire le pays au chaos. Ce jour, 30 août 2023, nous, forces de défense et de sécurité, réunies au sein du Comité pour la transition et la restauration des institutions, CTRI, au nom du peuple gabonais et garant de la protection des institutions, avons décidé de défendre la paix en mettant fin au régime en place. À cet effet, les élections générales du 26 août 2023 ainsi que les résultats tronqués sont annulés. Les frontières sont fermées jusqu'à nouvel ordre. Toutes les institutions de la République sont dissoutes, notamment le gouvernement, le Sénat, l'Assemblée nationale, la Cour constitutionnelle, le Conseil économique, social et environnemental, le Conseil gabonais des élections. Nous appelons la population, les communautés des pays frères installés au Gabon, ainsi que les Gabonais de la diaspora, au calme et à la sérénité. Nous réaffirmons notre attachement au respect des engagements du Gabon vis-à-vis de la communauté nationale et internationale. Peuple gabonais, c'est enfin notre essor vers la félicité. Que Dieu et les mânes de nos ancêtres bénissent le Gabon. Honneur et fidélité à la patrie, je vous remercie.
The faces of those who have proclaimed a military takeover of Gabon, deposing President Ali Bongo Ondimba. Baseni, it should be noted that for now, the identity of those behind the military takeover have not yet been disclosed. We have just seen their faces. At the moment, it's very difficult to identify them since they themselves have not disclosed their identity. And just as you heard there, all land and sea borders remain closed. All institutions of the state have been dissolved, and they are calling on Gabonese at home and abroad to remain calm, as well as other nationals living in the country, as they say that they have been guided by God and the ancestors to make the move to depose President Ali Bongo Ondimba.
Yeah, Peter, so the question now that many people are concerned about is the whereabouts of President Ali Bongo Ondimba, because we see that the situation in Gabon, which has surfaced this Wednesday morning, it's something that the opposition leader, the opposition coalition leader, Albert Osa, had, probably indicated indirectly. What happens to the whereabouts of President Ali Bongo?
For now, no message or information has come up about the whereabouts of Ali Bongo Ondimba. There's no official information as to where he's been kept or whether he's been arrested. And also no word from his party, the PDG party, which of course is a ruling party in Gabon. The party has not yet made a statement about the coup or the whereabouts of its party leader, Ali Bongo Ondimba, who has been deposed. So the situation remains very dramatic, uncertain, and very tense. Perhaps in the hours ahead, news could likely break out where Ali Bongo is at the moment.
So can we say that the military takeover in Gabon was predictable given the various issues that you've highlighted, so far?
Baseni, if we look at the situation of military coups, not only in Central Africa where Gabon has now been affected, when you look at the situation in West Africa, the military always takes advantage of a political mishap. Where the political leaders cannot come to a consensus, the military leaders can. And just like you mentioned earlier, the July 26 presidential elections, the August 26 presidential elections rather, was one which was very tense between the ruling party, the PDG, as well as the opposition coalition led by Albert Ondo Osa. And we know that following the voting on Saturday, the opposition coalition leader, Albert Ondo Osa, declared himself president and urged Ali Bongo to step down that same Saturday evening. So that was a signal that there was trouble coming along the way. Also, on Monday, the same leader came out and proclaimed himself president, urging Ali Bongo to step down. But on the other side of the PDG and Ali Bongo, they remained very quiet and serene. There was no counter statement to that, but everything indicated that the political situation in the country was not in very good shape and that anything could happen at any time. But if you were to ask me personally if I saw this coming, I would say no, because Gabon has been a land of peace for a very long time. We know that even before Ali Bongo came to power, his father, Omar Bongo Ondimba, ruled the country for 41 years, and there was no news about coups in the country. And when Ali Bongo came, it was believed that this particular trend will continue. So it's really a bit of a surprise in Gabon that the military takes over, particularly when you look at the sub-region, the Central African sub-region. We don't seem to have those incidents of coup d'etat. We all know that in the 1980s and 1990s, we had in the 1980s in Chad with Hussein Abre and Idriss Déby staging coup d'etats to take over respective governments. In the 90s, we had Denis Sassou Nguesso who came to power through a coup. Back in the 1970s, it was the president of Equatorial Guinea, Teodoro Obiangema, who of course dislodged his uncle from power in 1975. But since then, since the early 2000s, we have not had any major military takeover, apart from Equatorial Guinea, where there have been some little incidents where soldiers decided to attempted to take over the country, but they were crushed by the government of Teodoro Obiangema. So it's really a bit of a surprise that Central Africa is witnessing a military takeover, particularly just after an election result has been made public.
Yeah, except for the other areas in Africa, like, Mali, Niger, and where military takeovers have been common, and it's indeed a sad situation. So what's the signal that this military situation in Gabon is sending across the African continent as a whole?
First of all, in Gabon, it signifies change for those who believe in the military takeover. Okay. We should know that Ali Bongo comes from the Bongo family. Since independence in that country, they have known just two presidents, Omar Bongo Ondimba, who ruled the country for 41 years before he died in 2009, and Ali Bongo, who took over from him from 2009 right up to 2023. That's making 14 years in power. So first of all, for the Gabonese population, for those who believe in this military takeover, it signifies, first of all, a change within the country. But for those who don't believe in it, it's also a symbol that democracy must thrive in the country and that the military should not be allowed to take over power for those who are against the coup in Gabon. But generally speaking, when you look at the geopolitical situation on the African continent, Baseni, it tells us that there's a disturbing decline in democracy. Already the continent is having 4 active coups in West Africa. We have Mali, we have Guinea, we have Burkina Faso, we have Niger. And in what looks like a transfer of the trend to Central Africa, we have Gabon. But in the hours ahead, we'll like to know what these leaders, who are they first of all, and what plan are they proposing? Because there's one thing to announce that you have taken over power, and there's another thing also to hold on to. The second aspect of it is that it brings to mind a very challenging situation for CEMAC leaders. We know that, just like I mentioned earlier, the CEMAC sub-region for many years now, over 20 years, has not really been affected by coups per se, apart from little incidents in Equatorial Guinea that was squashed, and in the Central African Republic as well. Yes, and a failed coup in Sierra Leone, that was in West Africa, not Central Africa. Now, talking about Central Africa, it's a very big problem for CEMAC leaders, particularly the reign of Faustin Archange Touadéra, who just assumed the presidency of CEMAC here in Yaoundé during the extraordinary summit of CEMAC leaders that held on March 17 in Yaoundé, where Touadéra took over the reins of CEMAC from President Paul Biya. How is he going to manage the situation? Are we going to see the implications of President Paul Biya of Cameroon, Touadéra of Central African Republic, in Chad, where there's also a transition going on with what some observers say was a coup d'etat staged by General Mahama Debi. Are we going to see Chad's implication also in it? What about the immediate neighbors of Gabon, like Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, and Congo of President Denis Sassou Nguesso? Are the wise men of Central Africa going to sit down and see how they can make the situation more stable in the country and avoid a spillover of it to other neighboring countries? So it's a very big challenge for CEMAC leaders who have not yet made a statement, but could be making a statement in the hours ahead following the military takeover in Gabon. And also, it also brings to mind French influence in Gabon. It's also casting a doubt about French influence in Gabon. We know that since independence in Gabon, France has been like the paternal entity of Gabon. France has always protected the leaders, and its interests within Gabon. That is very rich in petroleum as well as other natural resources. But now, are we going to see a trend where these military leaders, should they succeed in this scheme, decide to drive away the French, or decide also to bring in the Russians with Wagner coming in? So it cuts a very big problem to France. I will not be surprised to hear that there has also been a military council meeting in France, like the case in Niger, because it's coming just 2 days after Emmanuel Macron held a meeting with with members of the diplomatic corps in Paris, where he frowned bitterly at the coup in France. And right now, another one seemed to be taking place in Gabon, which is its entity. So it's a very big challenge in the hands of Emmanuel Macron. How is he going to manage the situation? The energies will be divided amongst 5 French-speaking countries in Africa.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So there's this a question that always comes up when elections are near. You hear people saying opposition parties should come together, form a coalition, and maybe they have a chance to, overcome the president. But we see in Africa where incumbents won in elections, and like the situation in Gabon, where there were coalition parties that formed, and yet, President Ali Bongo still emerged the winner with 64% of the votes. Can we say that coalition in Africa, where incumbents are winning in the election, is a waste?
Well, it cannot be a waste, because Macky Sall became president of Senegal through an opposition coalition. It all depends on how organized the political parties are, and also the level of political education within the masses. But the situation in Gabon was very disturbing, because the government had to impose a curfew, and it was in the heart of that curfew at 3 a.m. where Ali Bongo was declared president. You want to ask questions why results will come out so late in the night, where there was a curfew and there are internet cuts. It raises questions. I will not want to affirm anything, but that's also democratic issues which must be looked into, where experts have to look into. It's very uncertain to say that opposition coalitions don't work, because they have worked in Africa, but it all depends on the political context of every country. And we are also getting indication about Baseni that the internet could have been re-established back in Gabon a few days after it was cut following the elections that took place on August 26. But we shall be confirming that in our subsequent news editions. And just to know that at midday we are going to have a special program dedicated to the situation in Gabon.
All right, Peter Sosi, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on this edition of Newsroom on Dash, as we look at the situation in Gabon, which is a major concern for the African continent and the world at large, given the numerous coups d'etats that have taken place in Africa. Do stay tuned to Dash News. We shall be back with more. See you again.